What is up, everyone? Welcome into the second Tuesday night Playoff Best Ball stream here on Fantasy Now Plus. I am your host, Tim Holstad. We are going to get into some more Underdog Playoff Best Ball drafts tonight, talk through some more strategy, talk about what happened in the last week, see if that updated anything, and get into a few drafts. So, without further ado, let's get right into it.
You're watching Fantasy Now Plus.
Alrighty, everyone. Welcome in. As I said before, I am your host, Tim Holstad. With me this week is John. How are you doing?
I'm good, Tim. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking some best ball and talking playoffs.
Absolutely. Pleasure having you here. Honestly, let's set the stage. Let's talk through what happened last week, see if anything really changed, and then we'll kind of hop right into it. Folks, if you have never played Playoff Best Ball before, now is the perfect time to start. As you can see on screen, if you join Underdog with the promo code FN+, that's FNPLUS, when you play $5, you will get $75 in bonus funds you can use on pick'ems or you can use on best ball drafts like this. And you never know, you might be able to turn that $5 into a whole lot more. So if you haven't joined the fun yet, definitely do so with the promo code down below. As always, wanted to shout out the Finns Talk Sports Network and Fantasy Now Plus for hosting this show, letting us do what we love to do. And please like and subscribe down below if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate your support. So, getting into last week, not a ton changed for the playoff picture. You know, the biggest game with implications was that Lions and Rams game. Rams obviously won, looked relatively dominant doing so. They did, unfortunately, lose Devontae Adams to some type of hamstring injury. We're not fully sure the severity yet. It's going to play a pretty big role in our best ball drafts right now until we know more for sure. If he's placed on IR, he's going to miss at least 4 weeks, which would be the rest of the regular season. And if they get the 1 seed, I don't believe the wild card round would count because that's not a game they're playing. So he would most likely miss the divisional round at that point, and that's a lot of scarier proposition in best ball. So that was a pretty big game. Any thoughts on what you're thinking of the playoff landscape? Anything jumping out to you after what happened last week, John?
I'm just surprised at how a couple of these teams have fared as of late. You wouldn't have ever thought starting this season that Baltimore would be on the verge of not making it. We just saw last week, Kansas City not making it. I believe it was the first time since 2014.
Yeah.
So those two, Detroit, they still get their chance, obviously, but the fact that it's a question, I said it the other day on our other show, that the fact that we're even questioning that we thought, at the beginning of the season they were heading to the Super Bowl. All your outlets were saying, that was the one team that was most likely going to go. So there's a few, and then, from what we saw last year with Caleb Williams, he's turned into Ben Johnson's, done his magic along with Bradley out there in Jacksonville, who's done some work with turning Trevor Lawrence around as of late. So there's some shockers on both ways. Those that are in contention and those that are fighting their way in.
Yeah. And even fun teams from this year have plummeted back down to earth. Like Daniel Jones' Achilles injury just absolutely decimated the Colts season. They were in line to be one of the more fun teams to draft in any kind of best ball. They were who you needed in regular season best ball, especially Jonathan Taylor. And then it just all kind of crumbled. And now they're starting a 44-year-old quarterback off the couch, and he's probably their best option, which is the saddest part of it all. And they almost beat the Seahawks, which honestly would have made this a lot more interesting, but them losing, they're not fully out, but spiritually they're pretty out of there, I think. I don't think they have that much chance of getting in outside of something totally off the wall happening. So yeah.
You got Washington, Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate, and they've, now set him back for the rest of the season. So it's another one that you thought we would have saw at least, especially after last year's, run that they made, and everyone was looking at him carrying through too. So.
Yep. And you already touched on it, like the Ravens are fighting for their lives with the most mediocre Pittsburgh Steelers team of all time, continuing their streak of being just barely good enough to not fire Mike Tomlin and never being good enough to do anything with making the playoffs. So, and the Bengals, like Joe Burrow injury just wrecked their season, but even when he came back, they've had opportunities to get back in it, and unfortunately they've just squandered it because that defense is just
their defense lost them this season. I mean, between what Flacco's done all season and what Burrow's done all season, it's just shocking how they couldn't put a defense together. And then Zach Taylor gets his extension.
I know.
I'm like, what?
They're honestly pretty similar to how the season's gone for my Arizona Cardinals, of just, it was okay with Kyler Murray, but it was obvious the offense was pretty stagnant, but the defense was doing well at that time. Kyler goes down, Jacoby Brissett comes in, the offense does a complete 180, becomes not just competent, but like actually statistically good, and their defense just absolutely falls off a cliff. They have injuries galore. I believe they're still tied for the league lead in players on IR. They just put Bam Knight on IR today. To add to that, they've just fallen apart. And I think the Bengals somewhat fell apart, but they were honestly just that bad to begin with defensively. So it's not better with Trey Hendrickson gone and them trading away Logan Wilson. But yeah, just a crazy season. No Chiefs, no Patrick Mahomes. I personally think they should fire Andy Reid, but that might be a hot take of mine. But yeah, it's making playoff best ball all the more interesting to draft. And I'm very excited to get into it. I'm excited to navigate these waters and see how things go.
Yeah, I've always loved best ball and playoff best ball. I have dove into a little bit in the last couple of years, but best ball in general is, I like having a mix of your regular redraft leagues and whatnot, and then your best ball ones, which you can kind of play around with at the beginning of the year. I get into some even in the June, July timeframe, just to one get going and seeing what the drafts are going to be like when the season comes around, but also just being able to not have to manage a roster and let your draft run and what you've put for players. And I know it saved me if I probably would have played, differently in some of those, weeks that I wouldn't have played someone that had a good week. And like, Trevor Lawrence was my backup quarterback, I wouldn't have played him, but in a best ball, you're going to get those points. So I think it's fun and exciting way.
Yeah, that's definitely my call to best ball is, I view drafting as probably the most skillful part of fantasy football. There's certainly arguments to be made if you play Dynasty of like trading and drafting rookies and whatnot, but for just what happens in a regular season, the draft is the most important part of everything. And then honestly, a lot of the rest of the season is more or less luck, especially in lineup where you're more or less just starting whoever's projected the best every week off of some arbitrary projection site or sites. And then
Unless you're listening to us.
exactly, we always know the truth. Let's see. Before we jump in, I have a question here from Jonathan. Drop Zach Charbonnet for Michael Carter. Does not have Kenneth Walker. What do you think?
I think you'd be okay doing it. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet hasn't really done anything the last couple weeks, and that offense is in the air most of the time with Darnold to JSN and whatnot. So I think you'd be all right. Carter's gonna take that roll over in your Cardinals. So they're on what, fourth running back now? So
arguably fifth.
Yeah, fifth running back. Yeah. So you got the practice squad coming back up, and he showed every time they brought him in, he showed that he can handle the load. So
yeah,
I would say you're safe with Carter being in there.
Yeah. I think Charbonnet at this point, his only upside is if Kenneth Walker gets injured, and that's certainly a possibility. He unfortunately has been somewhat injury prone in his career, but we can't really bank on that. And at this point in the season, I assume if you're going for Michael Carter, you're going for him to play him. And I would definitely trust the upside of Carter more than Charbonnet in any given week as far as what kind of points he can give you right now. So I agree.
Yeah, he's only gotten 8 attempts, 7 attempts. What was it? Week 13, he got 14 attempts. So
yeah,
it's been quiet.
Yep. Brian, tuning in. First thing I hear is fire Andy Reid. The show's going to be a banger. Yes, sir. Not going to get into that because I'll spend another 30 minutes. But yeah, I just think, if you followed basketball back in the day, remember how the Golden State Warriors had Mark Jackson at coach, and it was just like they were good. They were always in the playoffs. They were always one step away from getting there, and they just didn't. And then they fired him, and they hired Steve Kerr, and then everything changed for them. Obviously, Reid is far more successful than Mark Jackson ever was. He has won championships, but I would never argue that it was because of Andy Reid that he won championships. I would argue that he just happens to be the head coach for a top 2, not 2 quarterback in football. And what they've done to that offense in the last 2 years is like a crime against humanity. Like, they're giving Kareem Hunt 30 touches a game. Like, what are we doing here, folks? Like, I don't even know if that would win a high school football game sometimes. So I just, sometimes people just lose their touch, or they get too comfortable with where they're at, too comfortable with past success, and they hold it for too long. You see what the Steelers are doing with Tomlin. You see what the Ravens are doing with Harbaugh. It's just they're holding on to these coaches that are good, but they're not getting them to the prize. And if the ultimate goal is the prize, like, I personally believe that you shouldn't stick with someone who can't get you there for too long. But yeah. Alrighty. Any thoughts, anything else you want to touch on before we jump into this draft, or should we get it kicked off?
Let's get on it.
Alrighty, folks. Let me get in here. All right. We will be drafting in the mitten. The little mitten that I was drafting last week filled already entirely. It only had 18,000 entrants, so they did that in 1 week. So as you can tell, Underdog is busy. It is popping, and we're going to have to do the mitten instead. So this is a much bigger contest. 112,500 entrants, $5 entry with $500,000 in prizes. Advancement, 2 out of the first 6 advance in the first round. So a little gentler of an advancement structure. You don't have to fully just draft the absolute best team in the draft. You can draft the second best team and still be totally fine. And then it's 1 out of 10 with a 375 person seat final. 6 people in the draft, 10 rounds, so 60 players off the board, 30 seconds per pick. First place takes down $50,000. Second place, $25K. So you can see 10th place gets $5,000, so a more normal payout structure. 10th place is about 10% of first. We looked at the Gauntlet last week, and the Gauntlet is much more top-heavy. It is all about winning first in the Gauntlet, but the mitten is a bit gentler. And as you can see, qualifiers are the wild card round, which makes paying attention to the number 1 seed teams very important because they will not be scoring you any points. So if you think the number 1 seed is going to make the Super Bowl, then you need to plan your draft around that ideology, and you need to take teams that are going to play in the wild card round, hopefully score some points, hopefully get the right combination of players that score points as well. This is Underdog scoring, pretty standard, half point per reception, 6-point touchdowns, 4-point passing touchdown, nothing too crazy. You start 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 receivers, can be a wide receiver or a tight end, or 2 wide receivers or 2 tight ends, 1 flex, which can be running back, wide receiver, or tight end, and then you have 5 bench spots. And yeah, that is what the mitten entails. So let us go ahead and hop in. They don't like my location. Give me just a minute. Let's try
While
this
you
again.
work through that and get on that, do you have a preference, or do you play most with max entries, or do you like minimum or 1 single entry? Do you see the advantages, or how do you go about that?
Honestly, the dream and my own personal goal is to get to a point where I can do max entry, 150 entries of, not necessarily taking a stand on a bunch of players or teams, but just having a portfolio, being more embraced of chaos, more embracing of what can happen in a season, what can happen in the playoffs. But I do think if you're just starting out, if you don't have thousands of dollars to throw at tournaments and you only want to draft 5-10 teams total in this type of thing, I think something like the Summit is a great thing to do. It's a 3 entry max, $15 entry, it's $45. You still get $20,000 if you win the whole thing. Everything else about the contest is pretty similar to any of these other contests, but everyone only gets 3 shots on goal. So it's a lot more calling your shot and being right. And if you do, you're going to make a lot of money. So less risk for sure, less to lose, but a similar reward. I don't think anyone's going to sneeze at $20,000, even if it could be $50,000. But you have less than 7,500 entrants that can get into the Summit, and you have 112,000 that can get into the mitten. So if you just think about your odds,
Yeah.
one's a heck of a lot better, even if you can only do three entries instead of 150. Let's try this again. Oh boy, it is not going to like this. Let's see here. Underdog is unfortunately very finicky on your location settings. They want to make sure you're in a state where it's legal to play. So it unfortunately sometimes does this, where it just certainly does not believe that you're real or that you're in the state you're supposed to be. And we're doing great. Let me log out of here and log back in. As always, folks, if you have any questions in chat, feel free to drop them. We will answer them as soon as we possibly can.
While you're looking through that, looks like we have another question. Brian said, how does the contest size change how you draft, if at all?
It's a good question. I would say for me, it's kind of like DFS in a way where, if you're playing a smaller field tournament, you don't necessarily have to draft the craziest team of all time. You don't have to get perfectly lucky on every single possible outcome. You just have to draft better projected players for the salary that you need, and then hope that your better projected players score more than other people's projected players. In a large field tournament, you basically have to draft perfectly, and you will never know if it's perfect until it plays out, of course. But so there's a lot more skewing towards upside in large tournaments. There's a lot more skewing towards what is the 99th possible percentile outcome that I can aim for. And, it's kind of a give and take for sure of when you're drafting for the 99th percentile outcome, you're not going to hit it 99% of the time. So
Swinging for the fences.
Yep. So if you're trying to hit a grand slam on every pitch, you will hit some, but you will strike out more often. You will not put the ball in contact. So it also just kind of depends on how you view best ball, how you view drafting teams. Are you someone who has a large bankroll and can do hundreds, even thousands of teams, and you're looking at a portfolio and you just want to make a profit? There are plenty of people out there that play this game as a way to increase their bankroll and increase their money without only having a handful of shots to do so. So if you are in that situation, then you're probably going to draft differently than someone who has $100 they got for Christmas, and they love fantasy football and they want to see if they can no ball and accidentally luck their way into what you need to win a lot of money. So I definitely think contest size is pretty important for sure. But I also don't think it needs to control everything. If you want to shoot for the stars, I say go for it. It's your money. And frankly, we're all just kind of guessing anyways. So
I think it's something similar to going to a casino and you're going in there with, if they're going to do tables or slots, and you could walk out with a hefty pocket or a heavy pocket, or you could walk out with empty pockets. So it's just that shot you take.
Yeah. This is giving me problems, so I'm going to change this real quick. Alrighty. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to try and fix this in the background. Give us just a couple minutes. And let's see here. All right. Well, it actually loaded my location this time, so that's a good start. So it's probably going to actually let me. Let's see.
While Tim gets everything squared away there, we will also let you know that we will be at Fantasy Now Plus. We'll be running a playoff tournament. I will try and get that address punched up in the comments, but it'll be there will be a $10. I wrote down my notes the other day. There's a $10 entry. See if I can find it. Sorry, y'all. If you go to Fantasy Now Plus, you'll find all the information now. Here it is. 13-man roster, one player from any single team. So there'll be one team that doesn't make it on there, but submitted before the wild card round, Superflex format with a kicker. It's at fantasynowplus.com/playoff fantasy football. So when that gets fired up, everybody can get signed up now.
Absolutely. That's going to be an interesting contest for sure. Of you can only pick one player per team, and you're skipping one team that you don't want any player from, and just kind of seeing if you can get lucky, see which players that you pick no one else picks. That'll be a kind of a wrinkle that will help you either win a lot of money or lose spectacularly. So I'm definitely going to enjoy that contest for sure. And
it is multiple entries, so we can. My thinking already is trying to predict the whole Super Bowl thing and throwing a couple of different scenarios in there to cover you. So
yep. Draft question: what are your thoughts on drafting a player on a bubble team? Like, is CMC almost too risky? CMC isn't. 49ers are relatively entrenched, and they have a really easy end of season schedule, if I remember correctly. But, if we're talking like the Lions,
Indy and Chicago.
Yeah. And then I forget who week 18 is. Either way, though, if we're talking about the Lions, for example, they have a lot of players that sound absolutely awesome on paper. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams is playing well, Jared Goff.
Oh yeah, we finished with Seattle.
Well, not as easy as you would think, but also not unwinnable. They could easily win 2 out of those 3 games.
Indy made them kick field goals to win last week. So
yeah.
San Francisco's biggest issue is their defense too. It's not obviously to the level of Cincinnati, but their defense has just been dealt with a bunch of injuries, losing Bosa, losing Fred Warner, and so.
Yep. But
holding in that run game.
Yeah, I think, drafting Lions, drafting Ravens, there's people that are tempted by it and they're doing it. And to be honest, I just don't think you need to right now. Most of these contests will still be open by the time playoffs are fully decided. It doesn't close until before the wild card round actually starts. You can easily get a couple dozen drafts in, even if you're just casually drafting before playoffs start with knowing all the teams. So I think if you're building out like a full 150 all of these contests portfolio, it's probably a good idea to take a couple teams where you're just like, yeah, the Lions pull off the impossible and I can get them all for ridiculously cheap because they don't start going until like round 7. But for the most part, I'm staying away from it. I'm not a volume drafter at this point in life. I'm more of a smaller contest, smaller buy-in, but hoping to see what else happens. And I don't really want to spend my money on a team that is less than a 50% chance to even make the playoffs. Alrighty, let's see if this actually works this time. Goodness gracious, why? Well, I might be able to join this from my phone and then join the draft on the website. Let's see how this goes. Sorry about technical difficulties, folks. Underdog is very, very picky when it comes to your location and whatnot. So okay. There we go. All right, now we're off and running.
Do we have a question in there from Josh? Is this the championship round for season long or next week?
Click on it's next week.
Yeah.
Yep. So everyone advanced in week 14 for the most part. And then this week that just finished was the first round of advancement, playoff pods as we call them. And pretty much all of those were 1 out of however many number you got. So it was pretty brutal. Most people's teams are just gone at this point. But yeah, it's week 15. So most teams are going to advance one team out of each pod again, which is, in larger contests like Best Ball Mania for Underdog, that's 1 out of 16 last week and 1 out of 16 again this week. And then you've got a bigger final for week 17. So, yeah, we're in the thick of it for regular season best ball for sure.
I got to look over my teams.
Yeah, I got knocked out on all of my advancing teams. So did not have Kyle Pitts or Trevor Lawrence on any of them. So I unfortunately just didn't really have a chance. But that's the randomness of every year. That's why we play the game. All right, he goes Josh Allen here. Let's actually go Christian McCaffrey. So we're not necessarily saying that the 49ers make the Super Bowl, though we can obviously go that way. Main thing we're taking Christian McCaffrey for is that he is the best projection of any player in football every single week. Whether or not he gets to the Super Bowl is not really consequential. It's just he's going to score a lot of points, at least in round 1, if he gets there. So
do you have thoughts also with putting him in there as going with, stacking with Purdy, because he's might not be someone that anybody grabs. Obviously, Josh is already gone, but they're not projecting Purdy to go as far as a couple of these others, so we have a shot at picking him up also. Is that sort of a thought?
Absolutely. Especially if, this goes a certain way. I think we're going to take Saquon here and see if we can push Eagles around the turn. Because if it's possible that Hurts and Brown go, and then we just have another advanced piece running back, but it's also possible they don't. And then if you start building out Saquon, get Hurts in the next round, you can at least get to Devonta Smith. It's sometimes AJ Brown will fall a decent ways. You get Dallas Goedert later. You're on your way to building out an Eagles Super Bowl pretty easily. I said on our last stream, but I personally think that the most important positions for the Super Bowl is to have the running back and the quarterback, simply because that is where all of your points are going to come from in a single game environment. It's going to be scored by a running back, or it's going to be scored by a quarterback throwing to someone or running it. So in that situation, stacking is important for season-long best ball, where you're looking for variance. You're looking for teams that do great offensively. Let's see if anyone snipes us on AJ Brown. But yeah, it's interesting to see what's happening in this draft. I'm curious how things go here. So Brown goes, but that's fine. I think we will go Hurts here. Gives us Hurts and Barkley. That's a large percentage of what we're expecting if the Eagles make the Super Bowl. It would be on the backs of those two players, almost certainly. Players that we can stack with them are a bonus, but so we lose it on the turn, which is fine. So this is a situation where I think we'll go Nico Collins here. Houston's definitely making it. They're definitely playing in the wild card round. And if they do anything in the playoffs, it'll most likely be because Nico Collins goes crazy. He fills out the receiver room. And then I think this is what you're talking about. I think this is a situation where, okay, we didn't get the Eagles situation that we want.
Mm-hmm.
So let's pivot to, we'll focus on 49ers. We'll have the idea that is what happens. That is the situation that we're looking for. And we'll play it that George Kittle didn't matter because he already went. And, that's not the most outlandish thing in the world. There are plenty of other 49ers players that you can see getting there. And we'll play it that way. And you don't have to take them before their ADP. You can. Kind of just depends on what you feel about the players that fall in your draft. Even if you can't
worry you at all?
He always worries me.
Limp.
Yeah. I mean, he's missing this week supposedly, but they're probably
fire him up for the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to rest him for the playoffs. He showed week 17 last year he can be a scorer you need. He put up like 30-something fantasy points that week just out of nowhere. It's good to have those types of players on your team. We're going to go Brock Purdy because the guy on the turn behind us did take George Kittle. So I want to attempt to discourage him from taking more Niners, even though I do think there's some solid advance rate pieces still available here, but they will probably still be available. So we have our two quarterbacks, Hurts and Purdy. We have our 2 running backs in McCaffrey and Barkley. And then for now, all we have is Nico Collins, but we are going to fill out what we can with San Francisco. Rest of the way outside of Niners, we will probably focus on AFC players, try and get 2 to 3 of them into, hope that they are also in the Super Bowl against the 49ers, can fill out a full roster for you. We'll take Jennings first because he's much higher in ADP. And frankly, if George Kittle's not getting there, it's probably because Juwan Jennings is getting there. So we're through 6 rounds. Team so far, Hurts and Purdy, McCaffrey and Barkley, Nico Collins, Juwan Jennings. We have Ricky Pearsall queued up to give us 4 49ers. If we're going to aim for a 5th, Brian Robinson's not crazy. He could just get a goal line touchdown, and you're happy to get 7 points out of him if they make the Super Bowl. Any other receiving options are pretty thin. I guess there's DeMarcus Robinson.
If Mac Jones was in, I would say yeah, but Purdy hasn't really showed him much attention. So
yeah, him and Kendrick Bourne. Bourne's not the worst, and there is something to be said in this tournament about you don't want to draft a ton of unlikely players, but having one at the very end is fine.
Like your Xavier Worthy touchdown that took the 49ers out of their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All the difference in some lineups.
Yep. Unfortunately, Goddard is not on the board. He went a decent ways back. He's pretty high in ADP. Once we lost A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, I kind of pivoted away from Eagles pass catchers altogether as well. Just you can't build out an Eagles Super Bowl that confidently without their top 2 receivers and just hoping that it's a running back and tight end type of game. Then it's a lot harder to go pivot and single out an AFC team that you think you can get several pieces of. So we've got 4 49ers. We're open to a 5th, but we do not have to. We're looking for AFC running backs and receivers at this point. I think Woody Marks is fine, especially since we have Nico Collins. Could open up a Texans 49ers Super Bowl, which certainly feels unlikely, but also not impossible because these playoffs truly feel as though basically anything's impossible. Troy Franklin's good. Jacoby Myers is good.
It'd be an interesting Super Bowl with D'Amico Ryans going against Shanahan.
It would. Maybe we'll say that this is the NFL script writers at work and they're going to make this happen for us. We'll go Woody Marks there to do that. We got 2 rounds left. Probably good on running back. Probably just since you have to start 2 wide receiver tight end players, probably want to load that up a bit more. You only have to start 1 running back. Obviously, the hope is that 2 of these guys score and one's hitting your flex every week, but it's not impossible for it to be 3 wide receivers hitting your lineup. And again, we're aiming for AFC receivers simply because we are betting that the 49ers are making the Super Bowl, but you need 5 to hit a roster. If you don't feel great about that 5th 49er, you would instead want to try and give yourself as many permutations of who that 5th player that would hit your roster would be from the AFC in this situation. Jaden Higgins is not horrific. Dalton Schultz. Metcalf and Flowers are interesting, but they're not that live to make it. I think Brenton Strange is probably a decent pick. Let's go him here. What do you think? Do we Do we go for a gross 49er for our last pick, or do you want to just take another AFC receiver?
I'm leaning on AFC.
Okay.
I like the Higgins.
Yeah. Pat Bryant
I like
is
the Higgins.
the only thing that
shot
sucks
there.
about Bryant is that they're probably going to be the 1 seed now that New England lost.
Did we get Troy Franklin?
No, he got sniped.
Okay.
Most of the fun AFC clicks are gone unless we. I mean, it's not the strongest receiver room, so I don't know if we want to use one of our shots on the Pittsburgh-Baltimore coin flip because each of them have their best receiver available, but it's also a chance that they just aren't there, and then you're relying on 2 Niners, 1 Texan at Jacksonville tight end to really get you there. So
They would end up going. They could potentially, from what I was looking at, end up going against Denver in that second round too. So
yeah,
if they did survive, that secondary is gonna keep them bottled up.
yep, yeah. I think we'll go Higgins. We'll lean into the idea that it's Houston and San Francisco and build that out.
There again, if it were, I would think he would have an opportunity to do fairly well actually, because 49ers secondaries got holes.
And they can't rush the passer, which is great because Houston can't block the pass rush. So it's a very movable object versus a very stoppable force. So looking at the board, Bo Nix going in the second round is interesting. Drake May going in the first is interesting. That's kind of what opened up the possible Eagles situation for us. Usually you kind of have to be on the turn to get the Eagles. Barkley has a 1.5, 1.6-ish ADP, but they decided to go Patriots instead. Losing out on Brown was not fantastic, but it wasn't the end of the world. Same with Devonta. It just meant that we had to pivot, which is
That
fine.
6th spot is a little scattered too. Looking at what I can see is he got that stack, but
yeah, he packed on some Patriots late, but
Lions. I see 3 Lions in there, which we're not even sure they're gonna make it.
Yeah, so like if the Lions make it, this team probably advances, but if the Lions don't make it, it's almost certainly going to finish in last place, which some people draft like that, and that is a relatively not provable because it's so chaotic, but it is a solid way to lean into the idea of chaos and just saying, well, I'm going to have the best projected, like top 7, 8 players possible if the Lions make it, and good luck beating me. So it's a way to do it. Only has
being multiple entry, I guess, as long as he's gonna commit to, a few more entries, at minimum a few more entries, then you could take that stab. But if that's your one shot that you're thinking is gonna go, well, you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket.
Yep. And like taking Parkinson just at random here at the end, like I would just take a 5th Patriot at that point. Like you have 4, you have Stevenson, Booty, Henderson, and May. Like you can't even field.
He's only got 2 AFC players too.
Yeah. Like you can't field a full Patriots Super Bowl at this point. You absolutely have to hit on Detroit, Philly, San Francisco, or the Rams making it, which, like, to be fair, those are probably the 3 teams that I would feel the best about out of the NFC of making it is Rams, 49ers, or Eagles. But still, that's certainly not a guarantee. And the only guarantee if you show up with 4 people live in the last round is that you're not getting first place. So that bet is certainly Lions go all the way versus the Patriots. Perfectly fine bet to make. As Brian brings up as well, they didn't take Goff. They're fully betting on May. He's the only quarterback they took. So not wrong by any stretch of the imagination. It is a viable strategy, but it's riskier than most strategies for sure. So
he went late too.
Yeah. Goff didn't even go. He just undrafted.
Oh, wow.
Let him go.
Yeah.
Took Parkinson instead.
I'd have taken Goff for sure over Parkinson.
Yeah, especially if I'm playing into the idea that Detroit makes it and gets there
Right.
to some extent. But yeah, final team for us. Let me go back here. Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy at quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Woody Marks at running back. Receivers, Nico Collins, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Brenton Strange, and Jaden Higgins. So the way this makes it, 49ers and the Eagles play each other, NFC Championship. We hope that that's how that seeding works out. They basically get there on the backs of their running backs. CMC goes nuts, which is pretty likely, and Saquon goes nuts, which is less likely, but still perfectly feasible. He's still talented enough to do that. And semi-hoping, making a secondary bet on the other side that the Texans are able to get there from the AFC, or at the very least have a few solid fantasy games between Marks, Nico, and maybe even Jaden Higgins. Alrighty. Let's see if it works this time or if I'm going to need to join from my phone again. You would think since I joined the draft that it would then understand that I'm in the draft and doing it well, so it would be fine, but we'll see. Nope. All right, give me a second.
Not in the comments, but I did just see something come across that Love did declare for the draft.
Okay. Yeah, I have not gotten into any prospect film yet, but everything that I know of him, everything I've heard about him, everything I see from a data standpoint, he's very clearly far and away the RB1 of this class, and it's not really close, but I'll be interested to see how he stacks up against like Genty and Bijan and Gibbs as prospects and see where mock drafts are putting him in. Yeah, he's probably the 101 for rookie drafts unless something really off the wall happens, but it is wildly early to know for certain at this point, considering declaring just started happening today, yesterday, something like that. So excited for the off season though. Alrighty, we get the 105 here. As a reminder, folks, if you want to join in on Underdog and have not yet, if you sign up using the promo code FN+, that's FNPLUS, and then you play $5 on any pick'em, you will get $75 in bonus funds that you can use on anything on the site. You can use it for more pick'ems, can use it for these drafts, can save them for regular season best ball drafts in a couple months, anything you desire. So if you haven't already, use that promo code, sign up, and we could see you in this lobby. Got Puka going 101 here. Something that I'm struggling with in playoff best ball is that my personal belief right now is that the Super Bowl is probably going to be Rams and Bills. And it's basically impossible to build a good Rams combo Bills team on Underdog because half of their useful players are first round picks and the other half are second round picks. So it's very rare to even get 3 of them. JSN falling to 5 feels good here. Again, you can play Seattle to the Super Bowl, and we won't rule that out. But worst case scenario, he's probably going to be playing in the wild card, and he's going to be scoring a lot of points. If they don't, then Seattle's definitely losing. So won't really matter anyways. Let's see what the turn does here. Could play the Eagles idea again, but I've done that multiple times already in the 2 weeks, and it has not hit yet, so might fade that idea. Could be interesting to take Adams, see if Stafford comes all the way back around, but he also might not play, so he is riskier. Could also take Drake May and see, or take Trevion Henderson and see if Drake May comes back.
Like that Henderson pick.
Yeah, let's go Henderson. See if Drake May will come back around. If he doesn't, no big deal. Not the end of the world. You're hoping Henderson does what he did last week.
Right.
And they're not dead for the number 1 seed, but I think they're pretty out of it with them losing and the Broncos winning. I think Broncos would just have to stink it up in the last few games for Patriots to get back into number 1 seed contention. So
another early on projection that I'm seeing is with Denver at the 1, New England at the 2, they would actually face the Texans in the first round.
That's not as fun, but if you're making the Super Bowl bet that the Patriots win, they're going to have to score real life and fantasy points somehow, even against the Texans. So it's probably going to be Henderson if it's anyone, or pick one of your 7 possible Patriots wide receivers, which
that would be in New England too. So I think the weather could play a role there once we get going.
Yeah, and I think Houston's defense is excellent. I think CJ Stroud is probably fine as a quarterback. I think he's just not the type of quarterback that you want under a lot of pressure, and they have a terrible offensive line. So, Nico Collins will most likely get you there. He'll most likely be fine, but it's a little shaky to say for certain that the Texans could survive that game, even with how good their defense is, especially in New England. Chances of snow, I'm sure, will be 50+% by that point, and then it's just running backs and running quarterbacks is really all that you're going to get out of that game, and maybe a tight end 2-yard reception touchdown or 2. So
we had rookies. If we had rookie year CJ Stroud, I think he'd feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, and if he had rookie year personnel around him, I think he'd be a lot more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if we get sniped on Drake May here. If we do, I think we could pivot to RJ Harvey. We do get sniped. That's a little weird, but sure. So we've got JSN and Henderson. Going to Harvey gives us Broncos as a possible Super Bowl. They are a 1 seed, so we have to keep that in mind. But I think we'll go Harvey here and see if we can get Bo Nix on the way back. Could very easily build it out to be a Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl, which would be probably the most disgusting Super Bowl we can conjure. But someone will have to win the tournament still, even if it's all disgusting players in disgusting offenses. So
if it were, I'll resort back to my brackets here that I'm using as a guide, and Seattle's got, a decent option to make it at least to the yeah, they would make it through Tampa Bay and then have to face the Rams, which I think you could throw. We saw Detroit the other night. You could throw in the Rams, so
Yeah.
JSN would have at least two really good games. Then it would just be what happens between Green Bay, Chicago, and San Fran, which there again, if we go off of what we were saying earlier with San Francisco, if they were to go down to that route, then they're going to give up the yards too. So
Yeah. Yep.
it's not out of the realms of possibilities.
Not at all. My thing is also like everything's just kind of out the window when playoffs hit. Like I've watched great defenses get folded in half by good quarterbacks. I watch good quarterbacks get folded in half by great defenses. So regular season's a different beast. There's literally no way to know any of this stuff. That's why it's called gambling. So, I am definitely interested in the macro of, they have good matchups. They're in Houston's in a dome if they are ever at home. Things like that are important for sure. And those are the types of things that I'll use for tiebreakers of, if I'm between someone in a bad offense or what I deem to be a bad offense versus a better offense, I might lean towards the better offense. Or if I know that when the seating's a bit more finalized and I know they're going to have like the Texans and then they face the Patriots and then they face X other great AFC defense and to get there, like that might be a decent reason to not really want to draft that player if you think that outcome is more likely than not. So I think that's a great way to maintain edge and maintain ways of deciphering how you want to navigate these drafts, because you only have 30 seconds on the clock and there's 5 other people making a lot of very similar decisions around you. So sometimes things are just tossed out the window and you have to make a hard pivot pretty quickly. And it's not always done correctly and it's not always easy, but if you can do it, and as you get more reps drafting playoff best ball, it's easier to just understand what you want. We get Cortland Sutton all the way back, which is absolutely lovely.
Yes, it is. I saw that up there. I was like, ooh.
I'm also hoping that Walker makes it all the way around the turn, because then we truly have like everything Seattle and Denver built out. If he doesn't, not the end of the world, but
I think he's scared enough people that could hang in there.
Yeah. Falco should need receivers, but he goes Hampton. Alrighty. Well, I think we'll take Walker here. There's basically no reason for anyone to take Sam Darnold at this point. We have JSN and Kenneth Walker. There's no way they can really build out any kind of back stack. So we'll probably kind of let Darnold simmer for a while. If we can get Troy Franklin on the next go around, that'll be great. We'll have 4 Broncos at that point and 2 Seahawks. It's very clearly what we're going for. Do have to keep in mind the Broncos are probably the 1 seed, so we need to make sure we are scoring points while those Broncos are on bye. Does Seattle have any chance at the 1 seed anymore? I forget.
No, they're 5. It's showing as a sitting at 5 seed.
Okay, because I think
Chicago and Philly are your 2 and 3 projected.
Because isn't Seattle the same record as the Rams, but they don't have the tiebreaker, so they'd have to be like 1 game up on the Rams to get the 1 seed?
Yeah, I do believe you.
Okay. Do they play in the last 3 weeks? I forget.
Oh, look, I got it pulled up. Seattle, like I said, has San Fran in week 18. 17 is Seattle Panthers. And then 16 this week is the Rams. Actually, oh hey, there you go. That's this week.
Yeah. Glad McConkey is interesting here. I know Troy Franklin's there. I'm half tempted to push him and see if he just makes it. McConkey is a better projection, but we're going to stick with Franklin. Be safe about it. If Ladd falls, I'll probably take him over Darnold. Again, we're not fully screwed if Darnold goes. There are other quarterbacks that we can pivot to just to have a score in the divisional round. And again, if someone takes unstacked Sam Darnold just for fun, then may God be with you, I guess. We do lose McConkey, which is kind of sad. Jaden Reed is also interesting. Packers are pretty certain to make it, not 100%, but like 90-something percent.
Yeah. That's that whole Detroit dynamic, I believe.
Yeah. I'm going to take Reed just for some projection. Again, if someone steals Sam Darnold from it, so be it. We have plenty of Denver, Seattle pieces to get to a Super Bowl if it happens, but we also need some
Jordan Love
receiver.
too, I believe. I saw right still out there.
I think he just went at the turn. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Him and McConkey went. Love is great though. He is like my favorite. Oh God, everyone's gone quarterback. Once Jacobs goes, like every other Packer doesn't go until like the 6th, 7th round, especially with Watson injured now. So I think Packers, and I still think that they have like a semi-decent chance to make the Super Bowl. Like they have a good defense. Losing Parsons obviously hurts them a lot, but they were a good defense before they got Parsons, frankly. So they're not Bengals level bad by any stretch of the imagination. They'll be a top half defense in the playoffs either way. Let's see, so we have our last 2 picks here. So we'll go Darnold. We'll go Darnold with the first one, assuming we don't get sniped here. If we do, we'll probably just grab Stroud just to have someone who plays. I mean, Herbert's there as well, but he's kind of scary with a broken left hand. And AFC defenses are just, in general, scarier. All right, he takes Darnold unstacked, if you say so. Yeah, we'll go Stroud. And then we need a receiver for our last pick who's definitely going to play in the first week. Dobbs isn't awful. Shaheed isn't awful. Pearsall is slightly risky for injury, but isn't awful for can get you a lot of points if needed. Go Higgins again. Could make a slight bet that the Bears keep their playoff position and then you get the best Bear. But because we have so
Moore's on there? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Basically no Bears go right now because they're still not super locked to make it. So we've got Shaheed and Pearsall as kind of the obvious ones. Shaheed's another Seahawk, but we also don't have Darnold, so we're more so just betting on JSN and Walker being good now. Do we want to go Pearsall or Shaheed?
Throw a dart on Pearsall.
Alrighty. So, final team, Bo Nix and CJ Stroud, because someone took Sam Darnold unstacked for no reason, but whatever. Trevion Henderson, RJ Harvey, Kenneth Walker at running back, wide receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, Jaden Reed, and Ricky Pearsall. So we are hoping for a Broncos Super Bowl with either the Patriots, or not the Patriots, Seahawks or Packers or 49ers making it across from them. So I think that's a solid draft. We had to pivot a few times because things got kind of weird, but got some nice fallers. Got Cortland Sutton to fall all the way back to us in round 5, which was nice. Another reason why I like going running back, quarterback first. It's not guaranteed that people won't take your stacked wide receiver, but it is less likely because at that point he's not even an advancement piece. He's most likely not going to play in round 1. So you kind of lock off people from being interested in Broncos. So yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Got a Ravens believer at the 2 hole. It's going Henry, Lamar, Flowers in the last 3.
That 6th guy got a big old Eagle stack.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And honestly went Packers, just kind of low key as a backup. Has 3 Packers, a few Chargers. Yeah. That's a solid way to build. Of basically you have 4 from one team and then you take a couple shots on who the other team's going to be, and you can kind of piece it together with a 4-3-3 of, as long as in theory you have 7 of them, and if they're scoring well enough to get to the Super Bowl, then you're just sitting real pretty when it comes to the final round. So don't hate that strategy at all, especially from the turn where you can be a lot more definitive in how you're building. So yeah. What do you think? Should we do one more?
Sure.
Alrighty. I'm sure this will not work again, but we'll give it one more shot. Yeah. Mitten. Okay.
Chargers Eagles Super Bowl is wild.
Normal years, totally agree. I think this year it's 14 teams in the playoffs. I think all 14 have a legitimate argument. Like, some arguments are still stronger than others, but if it's a Jaguars and Seahawks Super Bowl, like, I wouldn't be shocked. It'd be gross, but that's just kind of the season we're having. All right. Jumped in another mitten.
Buffalo's running out of time.
It should be them. It really should be. But now is it active? There we go. Ooh, the 101.
Right.
Puka or Allen? I kind of want to go Puka, simply because with Adams' injury, sometimes he'll fall all the way back to the 2-3 turn. And then if you can do Adams and Stafford, you feel very solid about that. And just grab Corum in a couple rounds and then build for advancement elsewhere. So not guaranteed to get it. We'll see what these other folks do. We're playing for upside and playing for randomness, and sometimes you just get what you want in drafts, and it's good to not lock yourself out of those accidental things happening. If you have a really strong stand, you could just take Josh Allen at 101, but then you might not get a Puka, Adams, Stafford team, and you might have if you had just stuck to the ADP. So I think, it's fine to take strong stances, but if you're playing for variability and you're playing for trying to get the best possible team that you can, like sometimes you just have to draft by ADP and see if a room gets wacky. So doesn't here. They go Adams at the 201, pair with James Cook.
Wow.
Could still possibly get Kyron and Stafford, which you would also feel totally fine with. And, the late Rams are not ideal, but they're not the craziest. You can relatively easily see Colby Parkinson giving you a touchdown. You could see Tutu Atwell giving you a 70-yard bomb just out of nowhere. So we'll see what happens. If Kyron and there's no reason for Stafford to go, but we said that about Darnold, and then he went anyway. So as long as Stafford's there, we're taking him with Puka either way. So you can still build out a decent Ram stack, but hopefully Kyron is there. So that feels pretty sweet. You've got top running back, top wide receiver, and a quarterback for the Rams. You can now safely say that you've got the team that you think is making the Super Bowl, understanding that they're also probably the 1 seed. So you need to build a strong team around those 3 and then tack on a couple more Rams later if you feel like it, or you can just play it that it's those 3 and
something like a Green Bay stack in the NFC wouldn't be bad with that.
Yeah. Yep. Green Bay, Jacksonville, totally fine. It's a little more expensive with ETN going crazy last week. He used to be like in the 30s, but even Houston is totally fine. They're going to play. They're going to make it for the most part. And, they have pretty easily identifiable players that if things go well, you know it's going to be them. So don't hate that. Let's see. We still got a ways to go. Can't go Broncos. That's possibly 2 1 seeds, and then you're in trouble. Just going to star Corum just so that he's on the brain because he goes faster than you would think.
Especially with the last 2 weeks. Everyone's got recency bias.
Yep. I don't think going Lions would be smart. It's just too... I mean, it's probably smart to do it once because if they are playing, then goodness me, you have Lions, and then in week 2, you also have Rams and probably Lions again. But the odds that they get there are they're not indescribably low, but they're not fun either. I think they're sub 50% at this point.
Yeah, they got Pittsburgh, Minnesota. And with the Bears. So that'll be a pivotal game there in 18 for the playoffs for sure.
Might decide basically everything for them, honestly. Could just take 2 advancement type pieces and Diggs and Walker. I like Christian Watson, but the injury scares me. Could take Blake Corum. Could take Amari and Hampton. Let's do Diggs. get a wide receiver that's going to play a decent shot for a decently good game. You think we go Corum here? Do we want to see if we can push him around and get a better running back?
And we can, I would say either Corum or Hampton.
I kind of want to go Hampton. I think he's just good. He'll be healthier by playoff season.
Yep.
And, we already have Kyron, so you could argue that you don't want Corum to be someone hitting your lineup because the hope would be that Kyron just has a 2 to 3 touchdown game, and that's how you're winning all the money. And if Blake Corum's getting a lot of work, then that's probably not happening. So you could honestly argue it either way. I think you probably still take Corum if he comes all the way back around, but I don't think reaching for Corum simply because he's a Ram is worth it. I think it's better getting some projectable pieces that are definitely going to play and give you some good scores is probably a better strategy. Jordan Love's interesting. Brock Purdy's interesting. Brock Purdy just went. Reed. I think Jacoby Myers would actually be good on this team. Ladd. Be a weird Super Bowl, but could play for like a Chargers Rams Battle of LA Super Bowl in this one. Got Hampton. All the Chargers are still available. They're definitely not the 1 seed or going to get the 1 seed. So,
yeah.
I think we'll
Next
go.
couple weeks will help them heal up too.
Yeah, I think we'll go Corum to start just to get that Ram. Let's try it. Let's go McConkey. Play for a bizarre Super Bowl combo that's not necessarily going to be that popular. Right now we've got Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Marion Hampton, Blake Corum, Puka Nacua, Stephon Diggs, and Ladd McConkey. So we are going to, still want those, but probably don't want Love. Probably going specifically for Herbert now. Probably want another running back that is likely to hit the lineup, although they are cleaned out. It is basically Charbonnet or a 50-50 coin flip on Henry.
He's really disappointed.
He has. But I guess you could reason that if they make the playoffs, it's probably because he remembered how to be Derrick Henry. It's either that or Lamar remembered how to be Lamar, but we don't really need Lamar on this team. We would need Henry. I would probably not go that. Just the only reason we're taking him in the first place is because we want a second running back score in the divisional round if we're not fully confident in Hampton, and I don't really want to draft a 0. But at the same time, is Zach Charbonnet truly going to actually give you anything? Like, he could.
You're hoping for a touchdown.
Yeah. You're almost banking on it, really.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, Booty, Parkinson. Mike Evans is interesting as well. I think we push Herbert. How many quarterbacks are left? Oh, yeah. We're going to push Herbert. I think we go Reed and Charbonnet and just, lock up some more players scoring points. You know, we're
Mhm.
we
Oh,
don't
somebody
we're not
went off. Oh, that's us.
we're not going to get 5 Chargers to the Super Bowl. So like if we don't get Herbert, it's not the end of the world as long as we get someone in the playoffs. So yeah, we'll go Reed. We'll go Charbonnet. C.
I like that Parkinson.
Yeah, we're gonna run out of rounds, unfortunately. But
Going down that last pick.
yeah. I think it kind of would have had to be like him or Corum. Just because of we're taking so many zeros at the skill positions with Nakua and Williams already that can't afford 4 zeros there and having to for sure draft a backup quarterback. So
yeah, forgot about the bye. That hurts.
Yep. It's not 100% that the Rams get the bye, but that's the theory that I'm operating on. This is a very interesting turn that we're going to look at. Caleb and Baker to the same team. Alrighty then.
He's got what he's banking his team
Yeah.
on.
That will be interesting to look at once the draft is over. We'll see if the team ahead of us snipes us on Herbert or if they take Stroud or if they just go one quarterback. But we have a quarterback that's playing and most likely making the playoffs either way. So if we get sniped on Herbert, it is not the end of the world. Although we would obviously prefer it be Herbert because it's a lot cleaner of a bet.
Nope.
He does not. So we'll go Herbert.
I'm curious to know what these teams look like.
Yeah. 6 hole went 3 quarterbacks. That is certainly a choice. Went James Cook, Devontae Adams, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Bucky Irving, DeAndre Swift, Sam Darnold unstacked. No, he took Rashid Shaheed after the fact, and then Caleb and Baker. So he basically played it for
quarterback, running back.
He basically played it that the Bills for sure make the Super Bowl, but he doesn't have Josh Allen. And then he's banking on the idea that either the Bears, the Bucks, or the Seahawks make the Super Bowl from the NFC portion to fill out that quarterback spot. And he's got them all single stacked. He's got Caleb with Swift. He's got Mayfield with Bucky. And he's got Darnold with Shaheed. I don't hate it, but if you're going to do that, you shouldn't be taking Devontae Adams because he's just sitting on the bench.
That's where I was gonna. I thought it, even when he first started, and we were talking about taking him ourselves, and he went off in the second. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, like at first I thought he would go after a Buffalo Rams Super Bowl, which like is totally fine. It's hard to do, but it's something to strive for. But then he just like, I mean, we took most of the Rams but like he passed on Corum in the 6th. He was going for advanced piece running backs that might not even make the playoffs. So it's a thin bet. I mean, again, everything is up in the air, so it's not a bad bet by any stretch, but it is very thin. And
I see the Buffalo. His hopes, I think, hold on Buffalo, but it's just not having Josh.
Yeah, which, if Shakir and Kincaid are getting there, like it's almost impossible that Allen is not getting there.
Right.
But I guess I can see the logic to some extent of, usually when Allen drops 50, it's because he ran for 2 touchdowns and he threw for 2 touchdowns. So maybe the play here is just he only throws for 2 touchdowns. One goes to Shakir, one goes to Kincaid. James Cook runs one in. Allen is just kind of more of a pocket passer. He's getting some rushing, but he's not giving you like 80 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And they're just taking the bet that one of these NFC quarterbacks makes the Super Bowl and gives you like a semi-similar score to kind of cancel out Allen. Can see it. I wouldn't have picked these 3 teams in particular, but like I would have much rather gone with Love over Darnold if you're going for an NFC quarterback I would have rather gone Darnold and Love here. Let Shaheed fall back because who's taking Rashid Shaheed just unstacked at random? Like probably no one. And then I would have taken Shaheed, fall all the way back to the 9 turn. I think Baker's fine because it's either him or Bryce Young. And do you really want to draft Bryce Young in a playoff contest? Probably not. So I think Baker's fine, but just a lot of very thin bets stacked on top of each other. And if you want to draft that way, absolutely your prerogative. It's not wrong. It could easily work, but it's not going to be the most fun ride in the world to get to that point. So
it's one of those that you're like, nope, and then you see it come about, and you're like, well, I guess I was wrong.
Yep. Alrighty. Final team recap. Matthew Stafford and Justin Herbert at quarterback. Kyron Williams, Omarion Hampton, Blake Corum, Zach Charbonnet at running back. 4 wide receiver group of Puka Nacua, Stephon Diggs, Lad McConkey, Jaden Reed. And yeah, I think those were some pretty fun teams. I had to go a lot of stinkers the last week, so it was nice getting some more explosive type of teams and some better offenses that are more fun to bet on than what we got last week. Yeah. Any closing thoughts? Anything you think was interesting or want to think more about heading into the holiday season on this?
I'm just curious on the last couple weeks and how it'll pan out with like what we opened the show with, and Detroit being on the edge, and we didn't even really touch Jacksonville, but they've come alive lately to where that might be an avenue that for the AFC side you go down. In Fishbowl, I put it all in on my first pick, and it was a third round or third pick in the first round. I was going Josh this year.
Mm-hmm.
I just committed to it, and I said if he's there, I'm taking him. So every year I think we always say, is this the year kind of thing. So is it? But it'll be interesting here to see how things fare up.
Yep. I think the conversation around the Bills is going to be interesting regardless of whether they win or lose. If they win, everyone's just going to say, well, he didn't have to get through Mahomes, which I would argue he did because they had to beat Mahomes in the regular season, and that more or less kind of ended the Chiefs season, but that won't stop people from arguing that. And then if they lose, then it's like you had the easiest shot ever and you still couldn't win the Super Bowl without Mahomes there. So unfortunately, think it's just going to be a gross, dumb conversation either way around the Bills. But personally, I kind of hope they just win it and get it off their chest and maybe hopefully also learn some lessons about not having a bunch of wide receiver 4s in your wide receiver room and actually getting like talented players.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's like, look at what he's rode with all season long. I mean, Cook is his linchpin in helping them get where they are to this point, him and Cook. So, to play on the Mahomes piece, it's like, no, they've grinded. They've grinded and stuck it out, and
Yeah.
they've definitely put the work in to actually make it. So we'll see.
Yep. Alrighty, folks. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in to another Playoff Best Ball stream here on Fantasy Now Plus. One last reminder, want to join in on the fun, use promo code FNPLUS, that's FN Plus. When you play $5 Pick'em on Underdog, you will get $75 in bonus funds to use on whatever you want. Join us in these streets, have some fun, see if you have a better idea on how to play this than us. We're always happy to chat strategy, chat start sits, anything in our Discord. You'll find that linked in the description of this video. If you have not already, please like and subscribe. Follow us here on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. Follow us on Blue Sky for the most part, in Discord, all those great places. Good luck in the fantasy playoffs here for all of you folks that made it. Hopefully you can get to the championship game next week. And we will catch you guys later. Thanks so much.
One more thing, Tim. If you came in late or didn't hear me earlier, fantasynowplus.com/playoff fantasy football. Type that in and get involved. $10 for the Playoff Fantasy League. 13-man roster, one player from each single team, submitted before the wild card round, super flex format with a kicker. So come in and join all of us on the show and play along with us during the playoffs.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great time. Alrighty. Have a good rest of your week, folks, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.